Hey, it is 11:40, The Bet Las Vegas and Audacy Sports. Joining us now on behalf of Amazon Prime, Amazon Thursday Night Football is analyst correspondent Michael Smith. Of course, Jaguars and Jets this Thursday on Amazon Prime. Look, I told you before the interview, it's a small world. I had Jamel Hill on the show last week. Now we have you, and I've been going to therapy this year. And
it's okay, I'm second. It's okay.
No, you're not second. 1A and 1B. But look, I've been going to therapy this year. And one thing I've learned is we give flowers around here. We've been doing it all year. We got a week left, so we're not going to stop now. So I just want to say this on the record and thank you for not only being awesome and all the content I've digested that you've done, but also kind of setting the blueprint and showing a way and a path of how to do things properly. So first and foremost, welcome to the show and thank you for that.
That means a lot. I received those. I really appreciate it. It means an awful lot because as I get older, and I just left an eye appointment. You start to take stock of what was it all for? What did I do? What did I do for other people? What did I leave behind in this business? So that means a lot. How's therapy going, by the way?
Therapy's going really good. I actually I need to be a little bit more consistent because I'd be flaking a little bit. And also there's an age gap too. Okay. Where, I don't think she really knows me. And sometimes I get mad because I feel like she doesn't talk enough. And maybe it's because I'm in radio. It's no, I want you to interview me. Yeah. I don't want to just keep talking. I came here, you asked me questions. Now I tell you what's going on. But thank you for asking. I have a question for you though.
I need to do. The reason I asked is this. It's one of those I need to do this. I need to do this. And going into 23, I'm not a big New Year's resolution person. And I know that when I start doing it, I'll be like, why didn't I do it a long time ago? I also want my kids to do it. It's just something that I procrastinated on. And I've always been kind of like somebody who solved my own problems and self-diagnosed. I know I need to do it. I don't have any stigmas about it. I don't have any shame about it. I'm just a procrastinator. So yeah, every time I hear somebody doing it, I'm like, damn, I need to do that.
Well, I will say the one thing too that's super beneficial, and shout out to the mother of my child who forced me to go, is excuse me, even when you're you don't have anything pressing in your life, just to be able to vent and just talk about whatever. It's
like going to the doctor. You gotta be sick.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you brought up your kids, and that's kind of where I want to start. Christmas is coming up. I got a 4-year-old son. It's my firstborn. Still navigating. First off, thank you. I'm still navigating and discussing with his mother what we do with gifts. And we kind of had an argument this year. She said, "Look, let's do 5 gifts, 2 and 2 small ones we combine for a big one." And financially and honestly, logically, that makes sense. But to me, that's a 2-minute show on Christmas. He needs to be flooded with wrapping paper and open up all this stuff that they ain't gonna use. Yeah. Where should I be in that line?
Do what feels right. We overdid it. Our entire living room would just be flooded with stuff for all 3 of our kids, each of them. Obviously we had my first, she's 16 now. My second, my son is 14. My youngest daughter is 10. We always overdid it, only to end up complaining as they got older that they were spoiled. It's well, who did that? It got to a point where they would just open them and they open the next one and forget about the last one. It's well, wait, what about that one? So do what feels right, man. I feel like we do what we do. We work the way we work, especially when you have a kid, it gives you that, or kids, it gives you that purpose. And so I don't apologize for spoiling my kids. My wife says I give them everything they want. I'm I'm not working for me. I don't need anything. I'm not taking my money with me. I do what I do and in the hopes of being successful, not for my own ego, but to spoil my kids. I get joy out of spoiling my kids. And so I think you would get that same joy as long as you give them that perspective along with that.
That's the same thing. I take so much pride that my son has every Marvel figure of all the movies. You got to put respect on his name.
Raising them right. That's good stuff.
And before we get into football, I do want to ask you about your career. So it's been cool. Last week was the 20-year anniversary of Around the Horn. So I kind of went back through that history, obviously talking to Jamel. And, when it comes to your rise, if people don't remember, don't realize, you were covering the Patriots at such a young age and at the start of the dynasty. Yep. And then you get to ESPN in that transition where, these writers and columnists from not wanting to be on TV to being like the main purpose of the show. And you were doing that at such a young age. So not only were you a young dude doing this, where on the sports reporters, no disrespect to any of them, and RIP John Saunders, no one was under 40 years old on that show. So you're coming in as a young dude, you're coming in as a Black dude. Did you ever get a chance to, in that moment, to kind of realize like, yo, I'm doing this? Or were you so like in the thick of it? And also looking back, what do you account, like, was it your work ethic? Like, why do you think you rose so prominently and so quickly?
Well, first of all, I appreciate the question. No, I didn't. It's a regret that I have. I did not appreciate. Maybe I just couldn't, because it's like when I was
the
that
whirlwind.
Well, but not just that. It's kind of like Dan Marino going to the Super Bowl in '84, his second year. It's like, oh, it's gonna always be like this. And so I think, I always expected excellence and demanded excellence of myself. I was always a hard worker all the way through school. And so when I started to achieve at a young age, it felt like, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I felt like I belonged. I didn't feel like, wow, I can't believe I'm here. And I didn't feel like, wow, all my hard work is paid off, because I had just graduated from college. So it just felt like the natural progression. And so I never stopped to appreciate what I was doing and how soon I was doing it and how awesome it was, because I was always focused on the next thing. And that prevented me from being in the moment. It prevented me from really appreciating how blessed I was and how fortunate I was to be doing something so fun and to be around the teams, the players, the stories, the colleagues that I got a chance to get exposure to. So that was the appreciation part. The second part was why. Man, I don't consider myself to be any more talented than anybody else doing this. I think I had the fortune of being, like I said, in the right place at the right time in New England. The Boston Globe thankfully saw something in me as a college student. I interned there twice, made enough of an impression to work there full time. It was a great place to start a career, great market to work, and great timing. Being around the Patriots brought a lot of exposure. ESPN at the time was leaning more into talk television and debate television, whatever you want to call it, featuring a lot of writers. I was a young guy. Again, I had people there that saw something in me and poured in me. So I'm appreciative of that, both in terms of colleagues and executives. If I could, though, take credit for one thing, and I think even yesterday I did it, even at this point in my career, even 20 plus years in the game, even at 43 with kids and stuff to do, I always have to remind myself, like, I got here because of my hustle. The one thing I was never going to let anybody do better than me was hustle. Like, I was always going to show up. I was going to show up even if I ain't had to show up. Nobody had to tell me to show up. Nobody had to tell me to get on the plane. Nobody had to tell me to get in a car. Nobody had to tell me to get on the phone. I was always going to make sure that nobody outworked me. So, like just yesterday, and again, I'm not asking for credit for this. I'm just pointing out what has allowed me, in my mind, to be successful. And what makes me feel better about myself is just showing up when it would be easy for me to say, no, I don't feel like it and I don't have to. Yesterday, I spent the day at the Jets facility. So did a 2.5, 3 hour drive there, 4 hour drive back with traffic just to be at the Jets facility. I didn't have to do that. And the reason I say I didn't have to do that, it is basic and germane to being a reporter on Amazon Prime Video on Thursday Night Football for Jets Jaguars. But there are ways around me having to make the trip to New York at this point in my career that I didn't have to make that sacrifice. But I got up and I did it because that's all I know how to do. So again, I'm not looking for a cookie for doing what I'm supposed to do, to quote Chris Rock. You're supposed to raise your kids. You're supposed to take care of your kids. Like, no, I'm saying my hustle and my drive and my commitment is what I think is my superpower. Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense. And actually, I'm glad that you said it, because even doing these interviews on Zoom, I've had to fight to be like, no, we need this because it's video content. Like, y'all think this is just going to go on the radio and then exist for those as it happens and then just go away? Like, no, we need it. It's super, super important. I do want to ask you, though, because
that's what I say to anybody who just like asks me for like career advice, or how do I get in the game, or how do I get to where you at, this and that. Like, you got to just grind and you got to love the process. Like people say, trust the process. Trust the process does not connote loving the process. Okay. As in like, trust the process mean, all right, there's a reluctance to that. You got to love the process and be like, I love being boots on the ground. I love being in airports. I love being on the road. I love talking to people and not worry about the results that the process yields. Those will come in time. But if you're worried about results and recognition, you're going to get frustrated. If you just love the process, it'll come before you know it.
It's a dangerous game. And I do want to ask you, as you bring that up, like, so for me, not to go into a deep dive in my history, but I was up until this point, up until this last year, I wanted to be in radio since I was a little kid, and I wanted to be in sports radio, but my path led me to hip hop, which was cool too, because I loved hip hop and doing hip hop radio.
Yeah.
And I transitioned into sports radio. And this year, like, first off, I learned that it's so much different because it's not a barbershop. There's someone on Twitter who's like, he actually scored 22 points, not 25, you idiot. So you have to make sure everything is correct. But not only that, there's so much content that there was a point where I was trying to listen to everything because I wanted to know everything, because I didn't want anyone to checkmate me on the argument or on air in the interview and not know what I'm talking about. Like, and it's a rabbit hole. And I know you know your stuff and your work ethic, but you also know the game and you know the history. Do you think, like, if you were coming up now, like that would be one of like something that would give you trepidation or kind of drive you crazy because there's so much content and good stuff everywhere?
I couldn't imagine coming up now. I got out of the NFL newsbreaker insider reporter game for real right around 2009.
Did you sleep while you were doing it?
Well, but there wasn't Twitter. That's my point.
Okay. True.
In the league, when I was a national insider for ESPN, it was 04, 05, 06, 07, 08. Around 09, I started to transition into a studio host. And that started me, you know, doing Outside the Lines and College Football Live and NFL Live and ultimately Numbers Never Lie, His and Hers, Sports Center, so on and so forth. But when I got out of the newsbreaker hustle and chasing, trying to like get scoops game, Twitter was just getting started. I could not imagine trying to break in now. The thought of it stresses me out because the level of the amount of competition that's out there, the amount of experts that's out there. And that's another reason why I don't like, you know, look at me and my rise and my journey as like, oh, it's just because I was so good. It's like, oh man, there's a lot of people that could do this on a high level that know a lot more about me, a lot more than me, I beg your pardon, about the game, about the history, or smarter. So yeah, man, like trying to come in now, God bless anybody trying to break in now, because there's just so much information, so much content. It's so loud. For your voice to cut through is certainly a challenge.
Well, listen, I'll take that. Look, we pushing through, we trying. Let's get into some football. And obviously, Patriots Raider, the ending was crazy. But before we get into that, I just, from an overall sense, what do you think of the Raiders this season and the new regime, and obviously the expectations that haven't been met with this team fully loaded with talent?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man. You know, I'm not quite eating my words, but they're on a plate in front of me, and they're still kind of lukewarm. Forgot which disappointing loss. I don't know if it was the Saints shutout, Jacksonville, which in hindsight doesn't look as bad given how Jacksonville looks lately, or it might have been after they lost to the Colts and Jeff Saturday. And at that point, I was just like, look, man, Josh McDaniels may be a really good coordinator. He may just be a really good coordinator who happened to be with the greatest quarterback of all time. That's okay. There's no shame in that. And I said that was after he lost to Jeff Saturday in Jeff Saturday's first game. I'm like, that's okay. Not everybody's cut out to be a head coach. Then, after Derek Carr cries at the podium, it
sounded like Elvis too, right? You sounded like Elvis, right?
Right. But then it starts to turn. And I remember being in the green room with my colleagues from Thursday Night Football, and I was like, this is during the Rams games. We had them against the Rams on Thursday night. At that point, I don't remember what the score was, 13-0, 13-3, 16-3. I'm like, man, how much credit does Josh McDaniels deserve? Because this team could have easily just gone in the tank. And to a man, whether it was Gonzalez, whether it was Sherm, whether it was Fitz, whether it was Whitworth, none. I was like, okay. I was like, but you know what? You know, he keeping it afloat. Sure enough, Baker Mayfield happens. And I'm like, gee whiz, like just when I want to kind of like give a guy's credit, that happens. Well, to go from losing to a first-time coach who just came from the broadcast industry to a quarterback who had 2 days of preparation. And now, look, it was an all-time blunder by the Patriots, but damn it, they won. Maybe I'm just inclined to think maybe he just needs more time. Like, maybe especially
patience.
I'm not a big
patience.
I'm not a big patience preacher. I'm not. And especially after last year, when you had Rich Bisaccia get them to the playoffs under the most adverse circumstances that any team has faced in one season imaginable. Maybe him and Dave Ziegler just got to get the roster right. Maybe it's a matter of people learning his system offensively. And this is also just a crazy freaking year. I mean, I know Jeff Saturday isn't the best comp, but they just blew a 33-0 lead. A Bill Belichick team just had the biggest brain cramp of all time. I'd like to see how they finish this year before I render judgment on Josh McDaniels as Raiders coach. We know what he wasn't as a Broncos coach. Of course, he turned down the Colts job. I'd like to give him more patience and more grace than I typically do and we typically do. Because look, I mean, it might be a disaster this week against Pittsburgh. You know what I mean? It could easily be a disaster against Pittsburgh. And if you ask me this next week, I'll be like, man, I don't know. He hasn't had his chance yet to put his full stamp on his team. So that's not a sexy answer, but let's wait and see.
Logic on sports radio. We're breaking the mold. I love to see it. I will say, and for you, like I said earlier, covering the Patriots from the start of their dynasty, for once, how did it feel watching them play like they were the Lions or the Browns on that last play of the game?
That was so weird, man. That was I would say that's probably the lowest moment in the last 2 decades. I mean, the Miami loss a couple of years ago when they had Gronk back there and Kenyon Drake ran past him was a blunder, but I think they went on to win the Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken, that year. They looked like a poorly coached team, and I've never thought to say that, let alone actually said it, that they looked like a poorly coached team. They looked like a bunch of dudes that just went rogue. Like, they never looked like, not only did they not know what to do, but that they hadn't been told what to do until then. They looked like A, why are you running the play? Just take a knee. B, why are you handing it off? Because that play is like, okay, you just padding stats. C, felt like, and I don't know, maybe he's explained it, I haven't seen it. Ramondre Stevenson just decided, okay, let's see what we can pull off here. And then Jacoby Myers is like, yeah, sure, okay, I'm down.
Mac Jones needs to make that tackle though, right?
Like, yeah, right. He takes the brunt of it. Like, if Mac Jones wants to cuss somebody out, he's been cussing out Matt Patricia all year. You need to be cussing out Ramondre and Jacoby. Like, dog, I'm on a poster because of you. Y'all got this dude living out his fantasy of roughing the passer with no flag. Chandler Jones is like the patron saint of defensive players now because he gets to mush somebody in the ground, mush a quarterback in the ground, thanks to you fools deciding that this ain't a tie game, but we got to somehow score a touchdown on this play. One of the worst moments I've ever seen by any NFL team, let alone a team that its brand is do your job. Its brand is being smarter than everybody else. That was so off brand. I never would have imagined the Patriots would pull some stuff like that.
Yeah, it was absolutely ridiculous. Michael Smith joining us here on 1140 The Bet. I know you got to get out of here, so very quickly.
Oh, I'm good, man.
All right, perfect. So I wanted to do this because a lot of people around here at the station don't think I do research. And for this next question, they think I'm like Kyler Murray with Call of Duty, but I went through some Mike Tomlin press conferences because they're so amazing. Yeah. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 5 quotes here, and I don't want you to speak for him, but I kind of do. I want you to assess and explain what you think he meant when he said this. So we'll start off with this.
Oh, that's good. I've known Mike T since he was a DB coach in Tampa.
All right, this is
that's
perfect.
Another one. You want to talk about career real quick? Because I'm just in this mode now, man. I'm like this OG mode. I gotta give people examples of like what hustle does, right? And again, I was already employed. I was at a place at the Boston Globe at the time that spends money. So set all that aside. I met Tony Dungy. I went to Indianapolis to cover the Colts. Maybe it was Patriots Colts. I don't know what it was. Met Tony Dungy, who was very welcoming and very helpful. He told me, you know what you need to do? You need to go down to Tampa and you need to meet this guy, Mike Tomlin. Okay. I was like, all right, cool. So I got on a plane, went to Tampa with one purpose in mind. That was to meet Mike Tomlin. And we sat in what they used to call a shed. It was like a weight room area at the bus. He gave me some time. We struck up a relationship. Look where he is now. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so a lot of it is just like doing stuff and planting seeds that you may or may not ever see fruit from, but you just gotta like, it all adds up in the end. So I just want to tell that story.
No,
Go
I
ahead.
love that gem. I love that gem. So first quote, nobody's got a bunch of car seats in their back seat.
Nobody's got a bunch of car seats in their back seat. Like, I guess we're not a bunch of babies, we're a bunch of grown men.
I think so. I think that was what
Everybody's an adult here, I guess. Everybody's grown, or we don't have any, we're not carrying any babies. That would be my guess.
either that or it's like a coverage question about their secondary. But anyway, we'll move on to the next one. We will always be trying to put that 8 pounds in a 5-pound bag. That work is never done.
8 pounds in a 5-pound bag. Yeah, I don't do much yard work myself.
I'm making him sound like the Riddler. I'm starting to realize.
No, look, Mike Tomlin press conferences are a thing of beauty. Like,
yeah.
I mean, we get a brother from another on Peacock, the show I do. We get our kicks out of it all the time. Like the Tomlinisms are yeah. I guess it's like a gardening joke. Maybe I need to do more manual labor, but yeah, a gardening reference. Yeah.
And we'll do 2 more quotes. We're still squirreling those nuts.
I never heard that one. I guess that means we're still working on that. We're still gathering information.
That is correct. That according to this website that I got, my MikeTomlinQuotes.com told me. And then
There's
last
a website devoted to this?
Theater of the mind. Theater of the mind.
I was today years old when I learned this. Man, you put me on to something. I got to go check this out.
And then last quote for Mike Tomlin is earlier this week talking about Derek Carr. He called him a rhythm decision maker. How do you assess that? What does that mean?
Rhythm decision maker. When things are going well, when he's not disrupted, when he's not under pressure, when the pocket is clean, and you give him time, he can make good decisions. When there's chaos around him, his decision making can be effective. Well, which I think as a Raiders observer, I think you know that to be the case.
100%. 15 different iterations of that offensive line. About to be 16 on Saturday. All right, last 2 questions. As we head into the playoffs for the NFL, what is the biggest storyline that you want to pay the most attention to?
Well, the field hasn't quite been finalized, so teams like the Lions, of course, could get in, which would be an amazing story. I would say, you know what? I'll go back to last year, because I was a big, not even bandwagon rider. I built and gassed up the Bengals bandwagon.
That's what was in my head.
Joe Burrow, you can make an argument for Joe Burrow as the best quarterback in the league right now. He's in the conversation.
MVP conversation too, right?
Huh?
Would you put him in the MVP conversation as well?
Certainly. And the AFC has, Josh Allen, of course, Patrick Mahomes, and, Lamar Jackson to a slightly lesser extent. I'm sure I'm missing some.
I'll say Jalen Hurts. I don't want you to get.
Well, just AFC.
Okay, got you.
AFC. I mean, Tua's on the come up in the AFC. Trevor Lawrence is on the come up in the AFC. Like the AFC, there's a lot of young guns in the AFC. I don't know if you remember that movie. But point being, like, it may be Joe Burrow's conference. Like last year, people looked at the Bengals like, oh, cute story, one-off, they got lucky. Like the Bengals may be coming for it again. So I was saying the AFC, the Bengals, and you mentioned in the NFC, like in a league where the old saying is more games are lost than they are won, in a league where so many games come down to one score. Last week we saw 3 17-point comebacks for the Eagles to be 13-1. Micah Parsons got in some hot water for saying it's not Jalen Hurts, it's the team, it's both. And I think you got a chance to see that this week. What a remarkable season, but can they do it when it matters in the playoffs? Because San Francisco right now would be my pick to come out of the NFC, even with a third-string rookie quarterback.
Crazy.
But Philadelphia, I think, is going to be the story going into the postseason.
100%. I also think with the Bengals, like the thing that people need to keep in mind, number one, we know they're not scared of the Chiefs. Number two, the Bills have not looked, granted, they did win versus Miami, but they haven't looked like we thought they were going to look going into the season. But our final question, forget the football.
All right.
And let me just thank you real quick, because I've seen you with some Freddie Gibbs Alfredo merch, some Griselda merch. I want to know, and it doesn't have to stay in the hip hop and rap, but what's your album of the year?
Ooh, my album of the year for 2022. I'm gonna go with what I've just been listening to like over and over lately. Like I'm on a lot of planes. I just got platinum medallion status with Delta. I'm on a lot of planes.
We love to see it. We love to see it.
Yeah, I'm on a lot of planes. I'm in a lot of cars. And I'm a creature of habit sometimes. And what I keep going back to is King's Disease 3. I keep going back to Nas. Like that is some of his best work, and that's saying something. Like Nas, a lot of people have Nas in their top 5, their personal top 5 anyway. I feel bad for like not including him in my personal top 5. You know,
well, it's had to be changed now because of how good his work's been later in his career. Like,
what a late career renaissance. Like, I mean, like again, he was always. But when I thought about Nas, I thought about Illmatic and It Was Written Nas. Like the Nas I can't. This King's Disease Nas is on some other stuff, man. Like King's Disease 3 is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So I would say that's my album of the year for 2022.
Well, I used to troll people and be like, hey, if we look at it, Kendrick's got better albums than Nas does. You know, Nas has 2 amazing Untouchable, but Kendrick's got 2 Untouchable and a lot of other stuff. But now that's changed. And shout out to Hit Boy 2 producing all this. And shout out to you, Michael. Thank you so much for joining us. The conversation, 2023, get some therapy, my guy.
I am.
Good. And hopefully we have you on again. This was a great conversation. I appreciate the time.
Hey, man, this was so much fun. Adrian, man, keep doing your thing. Keep grinding. All the best to you and your family. Enjoy these moments. When I tell you the days are long, but the years are short, these Christmases, I would give anything to trade places with you, because my oldest is driving and looking at colleges. My son is girl crazy. All I got is my 10-year-old, and she getting bigger by the day. So I'm just telling you, man, like, enjoy these moments, brother.
I appreciate it, my G. Thank you so much. Michael Smith, 1140 The Bet.